Now let's talk a little bit about the deaf community and deaf culture. In general, when we think of culture, it encompasses language, values, traditions, norms, and identity, and deaf culture is no exception to that. Deaf culture is at the base of the whole deaf community, so it encompasses history, achievements, and the contributions of the community to both themselves and the hearing society. And it's based on language, in this case, sign language, which has its own syntax, semantics, and social rules of use. One of the most important things to the deaf community is that society shouldn't view deafness as a deficiency, but rather as a completely separate linguistic context, worldview, and culture that is intertwined and interconnected all around the world. The deaf community encompasses all culturally deaf people, which might at times be hearing members, such as the family or friends of a deaf member. And it is the community that is in charge of perpetuating deaf culture through the arts from generation to generation. Now we'll go over some interesting facts about the deaf community. As mentioned before, deafness shouldn't be viewed as a disability. Therefore, deafness with a capital D represents a completely different human experience, one that should be lived through visual inputs rather than auditory. The deaf community is extremely interconnected and collectivist, and it places great value on two things: information sharing and clarity. So it is not surprising that sometimes deaf interactions might sound blunt or very straightforward to a member of the hearing community. On a similar note, a member of the deaf community wouldn't have any issue commenting on things that to a hearing person might seem rude or inappropriate, such as someone's weight or someone's looks. On the contrary, not mentioning very obvious things might make you seem uninterested or aloof. It's very important to remember that facial expressions are at the very base of all sign language communication, and that a deaf person's eye and hand are his communication means, so we have to try to not impair those during conversation. When non-native members enter the deaf community, they will have to spell out their names to introduce themselves up until the point where a member decides to gift them a name sign, which takes time and consideration as it has to apply to a complex system of rules and it has to be indicative of the person that it's being given to.